afternoon, and welcome to another Clearwater Jazz Holiday Foundation's Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions. And guess what? You're in for a treat today. I am your guest host, Michael Kernodle, and today's educator's no stranger to our virtual sessions. We have the professor, Tyler Wertman, and the topic is learning harmony. Something I know all the musicians could really benefit from getting some new wisdom and knowledge from this. So we're excited. But before we start, we just want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, just go in that chat feature and type out your questions, and we'll try to allot some time at the end to answer anything that you may have questions about. We love your feedback. Keep in mind, all of these sessions are free. So please go to our archives, go to our website, because there's so many other sessions that we know you'll enjoy, whether you're a seasoned musician or a new musician. There's so many things that you can learn from. So go to our website, www.clearwaterjazz.com/education. And if you have any feedback, or maybe you have a future suggestion topic that something we could talk about, we would love to hear that. Our email is info@clearwaterjazz.com. So love to hear from you. So moving right along, we want to thank our sponsors. As you check out the studio archives at our website, at our education outreach, that is brought to you by our friends over there, Blue Water Wealth Management at Stewart Partners and Duke Energy, as well as the Young Lion podcast. And you can get that wherever you stream. That's brought to you by our friends over there at Marine Max Clearwater. And just search Young Lions Jazz Master Virtual Sessions wherever you stream. So what can I say about Tyler Wertman? Maybe you've checked out some of his past sessions. Here's a few just to name. Here we go. Basic trombone fundamentals, long tones and lip slurs. We all need those. Scale pattern practice, alternate positions on trombone. Man, that's a really good one to have as a trombonist. Here's another one, an approach to improvisation on trombone, chord progressions, turnaround practice. I mean, the man has dropped so many jewels here at our Young Lions virtual session. But let me tell you a little bit about him. He is a composer, performer, producer. He focuses on jazz and classical styles. He's done so much with us here at the Clearwater Jazz Holiday Outreach programs, including the Young Lions Jazz Master Sessions. He's done so much with us. But you may see him as an adjunct faculty professor down there at the Bauer School of Music at Florida Gulf Coast University. There he is the director, the primary director of the FGCU basketball band, and he teaches the FGCU Student Brass Quartet, the Student Jazz Combo 2, private students, instrumental lessons. I mean, the man does it all. And not only that, he's also with the University of Tampa. So he's a busy, busy man. And guess where he has his credentials from? His Bachelor's of Arts from FSU and his jazz studies from USF. So I think I've said so much about this wonderful educator. He's definitely going to deliver today. Tyler Wertman, the stage is all yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, Clearwater Jazz, the sponsors, everyone who participates in these videos. Like you said, they're all free. I really wish I had something like this when I was in school. It would have aided me a lot, just to say the least. But today is all about harmony, okay? And so we've talked about turnarounds. We've talked about things that incorporated harmony already. But today we're sort of going to just sit down and talk about what is harmony, how you might interpret harmony, what are some other ways to interpret harmony to expand on what you already know. And it's important to work in all of these facets, trying not to just focus on one or the other, but trying to stay as open as possible with your ears. Okay. And this could happen, if you're in the jazz band, for instance, and someone else is taking a solo and you're listening to the vocabulary, your harmony, essentially, and how they're, incorporating notes on top of certain chord changes that, or it might ease tension or release tension. And these are just natural principles in music that we've been dealing with since music has been created. Okay, so again, just staying open in those facets are going to aid you down the road. So again, what is harmony? Well, to try to put it simply, harmony is, the relationship between two intervals. Okay. And that's, it's usually it's going to be a space, right? But it could be, we can have semitones, whole steps, up to thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, distances, right? Each of these steps is a certain distance away from the other note. Now, I know you have to have three notes to make a chord, things like that, but that's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about just harmony right now. And so it's important to understand some of these stronger harmonic, just, pitches out there. And so I don't mean pitches sort of by letter names or keys, but just by these classifications of fourths, fifths, thirds, things of this nature. I'm sure you might have heard, these principles already. And so one way we can describe them very simply is by just talking about a major scale. Okay, we'll talk about C major right now, which is 8 keys white to white on your keyboard, right? And so in this one incorporates a second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, sixth, major seventh, and an octave. Okay, and so with all of these played together, we have this sound that leads us into the beginning pitch an octave up. Now, each of these notes are a distance right away from our root, so to speak. Okay, so I'll turn it just a little bit louder. So we have our root in I'll play our root in our second together, root in our third, root in our fourth, fifth. Let's keep on going up, sixth, excuse me, seventh, in our octave. Okay, and it's important to hear each of those pitches, okay, and how it relates to the root note essentially. With our octave, it's as clear as the pitch can be, right? Or as it should be if we're playing in tune for us brass musicians. But then we have notes that sort of have some crunch in there. Hopefully you heard, the crunchiest interval, for lack of a better term, would be the root in the major seventh, again, played. I'll play it again. This might sound like a really bad alarm clock, but when played with the rest of a C major chord, it produces a very nice sound. And what you're hearing is four intervals, basically, right? So our root to our third, our major third, you're hearing our root to our fifth. That is a perfect fifth. And you're hearing our root to our major seventh. Okay, so each of these intervals. Here's a fifth. Here's a seventh. And it's important to sort of hear or aim to hear with your ear again, each of these intervals, when you hear a C major chord, can you hear that root? Can you hear the third? Can you hear the fifth or the seventh? Because if you can, then you might be able to hear other extensions on top of a chord that might aid you in soloing now, or in composing, or anything, right? So that's the first step, is try to use your ear in relation to the harmony that you're presented with. Okay. And it doesn't just stop there, right? Because we have these very crunchy intervals that we talked about, right? So that was the major seventh and the root. Here's another sort of crunchy interval, which is just the root and the second note. I'll play it again. Now this is a whole step, okay? So those two notes together, they don't really have a strong sense of harmony, not like a third or a fourth or fifth. Those three intervals have a very strong, and so does the sixth. Sixth has a very strong relation as well. And so that's something to take note of, that strong sense of harmony, okay? And then practice it throughout your keys, right? And again, this is just C major, but I'm just demonstrating the interval length here. Okay, so by practicing these intervals on your horn, so do you, as I'm going up through these chords, or this is just C major, okay, what I'm playing, root, third, fifth, and seventh, but I will go up and invert it as I go up to get these different sounds going. That's a cool sound, right? But that's a completely different sound, right? And so that builds from the third of our chord, which leads to an concert E, concert G, concert B, and those three notes together give you a concert, well, E minor triad. So now we're sort of playing off of a different chord while thinking of C major. Okay, and then if we extend it to the fa, excuse me, it's a different sound entirely. And so we're building from here. And so you could make exercises for yourself, okay? Ascending, descending, diatonic, chromatic, okay? And so again, this is just with C major, but you can incorporate any chord or scale practice into what we're doing here, all right? And so that's really the best part of it. Whatever you're working on, just kind of take it. I used to take one key a week, okay, at least with my warm-ups and sort of maybe the 30 minutes or so of just practicing where I'm trying to find new material, because that's important too. It's important to practice our quote unquote just material that's going to make us great players. Sort of having a hard time finding it, but just the rudiments, right? Going back to the basics, long tones, scale practices, things like this. But then, there's a certain point in your practice where you need to be pushing the limits on what you know. And so again, once a week, I would pick a key. So with my warm-ups, right? So I would do, scales, long tones, things like this. I would pick G melodic minor. Okay, that would be my scale for the week. Okay, and so I would really get comfortable with G or melodic minor. Okay, also known as G minor, or if it's a chord, you might see this as G minor with a major 7. Okay, so it's just a different sound on piano. And so I'll spend the whole week just on G melodic minor, right? Doing scales in thirds, things like this, incorporating exercise that I just showed you, just to aid me. Maybe I was playing a tune, right, that week, and it just had a lot of G minor major 7. So I needed to practice that sound, that chord, to get some different ideas going. Because that's the one thing I really don't enjoy hearing is, young players who don't have those creative ideas, right? And that's a big difference from someone who's playing, a whole bunch of fast material. That's great, but how creative are they being with that material? Right. And you can tell it's a sense of energy, or a sense of, implication from the artist that, hey, I'm sort of changing this now. And so listen for that, guys. I can't recommend that enough. If you're hearing a different harmony, okay, man, what like tap the guy on the shoulder or the girl on the shoulder, say, what were you playing? That was great, or record it, go home and sit down with it, take it, note by note. Why? Because you are going to understand their intervallic interpretation over these chords. And then as we mature, that's all we're doing is maturing our note selection, especially when you play the trombone. We can't play 10 billion notes, right? In one course. I wish we could. It would be really cool. But we need to be more selective with the pitches that we have to play, opposed to other instruments, right? Who might be able to play 10 notes at the same time, or 8, right? Piano players. I'm sure they can play 10 note chords. But it's a different level of understanding. And again, it's no matter what level you're on, you can benefit from this type of practice. Mike, you got any questions? I think that's all I had for interval and harmony practice here.
I found it very neat and helpful that you said, of course, study the chords, playing up and down. But here's what a good thing I heard you say: make your own exercise out of playing those intervals. Sometimes I know students say, it gets boring playing the same thing. Well, this is where you can get creative. You want to play up and down the intervals. You want to jump from the 1st to the 7th. And maybe play with the backing track. If we're doing blues, there's all kinds of ways you can do this. So right. I really like the fact that you brought that in the picture, because we all need this theory, but it doesn't have to be boring, but it's vital. When you say it's vital to have this knowledge.
Yeah, and by making your own exercises, right, it gives you not only something to do, but you're now understanding your own knowledge in a different way. And so by having Tyler Wertman #2 C major exercise. That's something that nobody else has, right? Maybe it's taken from somewhere else, but it's very personal. And then, man, I want to find that third exercise now after I've mastered 2 on all 12 keys, and then keep on going, keep on creating. And then guys are going to be looking at you like, man, how did you come up with this stuff? It's like, well, I've been practicing my sounds, my harmony. This is what I, am looking for.
Absolutely. And you also talked about, coming up with your own, exercises, but here's another one: learning different keys, but taking one at a time. How many times have we seen, someone say, I'm going to learn all 12 scales this week? That's like just setting you up for failure. I mean, our brains need time to retain it and digest it. Man.
And that's why I didn't mean to cut you off. I would take 1 key a week. It might seem like a long time to some people, but a week's not that long. And so that practice, right, is just going to be fundamental for everything going forward. It's not like that key goes away after that week. Keys, pop up in music all the time.
That's true. And if you don't have that practice in, the first time you see E major or B major on a piece, if you're not used to that, it's going to stop you in your tracks. But, I do want to say, when you're doing that 1 key every week, you can do the major, the minor, you can go through all the different type of modes. You just don't have to say, hey, I'm going to do B flat concert scale and that's it. There's so many ways you can play a B flat concert scale, master it. And then I'm pretty sure, would you agree, after you get past a couple, they're going to all start to get a little easier to master. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And what if I told you, if you learn your B flat concert scale, you actually learned 7 other scales? And that's something that doesn't really get talked about as much. Because if you could play your B flat concert, you can play E flat Lydian, and E flat Lydian is great. Don't you agree?
I agree. All of those modes, they're awesome, but you have to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
So start with the basics.
It's that understanding, right?
Right. And just keep growing and just keep exploring. Never get complacent and just saying, hey, I'm only playing songs in E flat. I'm only playing songs in F. Why do I need that? No, you need it all, as much as you can get. So, and you know what? This is a great time to say, hey, if you know other people that need knowledge like this, and I always say, it doesn't matter what level you're on. I mean, I am still here learning from, some of the things that Tyler is talking about today. And I'm like, oh, you know what? That makes sense, because we can all see things a different way. But we want to recommend that you go out, tell other people about what you're hearing. So tell them, go to our website, check out those upcoming free sessions in the archives. You can go to www.clearwaterjazz.com/education. You can email us, if you say, hey, you know what? I like what Tyler taught me today, and can we go a little bit more in depth with that? Sure. Put in a request. Email us at info@clearwaterjazz.com. We would love to hear from you. I'm your guest host, Michael Kernodle, and we've had Tyler Wertman here giving us some great knowledge, and we want you to keep it swinging, and we'll see you on the next one.